Move on.
To be honest with you. Hey, welcome everybody. I was just trying to convince Chris and Colin that we needed to push this back an hour so that it could be happy hour, but to no avail. So here we are. We thank you guys for joining us. You know, Chris, Miley's, Kosa, they've been putting on these conferences, these Zoom meetings for a couple of weeks now, and I think that they've been very productive in terms of providing people opportunity to not only vent, but to share ideas about how we're going to proceed. And I think that that's the thing that just struck me and also Jamie in terms of how we move forward with our transitions that we're going to face pretty soon. They're pretty vital. I know that we were talking just a bit ago about the anxiety that's starting to surface right now amongst parents, especially with I'm in week 4, 5, 6 of this, and you guys are wonderful. My kids are driving me nuts. Can we get back to school? And how's that going to look? So we have things that we have to think about and how to proceed. You know, we've got our normal transitions from grade level from elementary to middle and from middle to high and celebration ceremonies. But you know, I don't have answers for those other than the virtual thing. And that's always a hit or miss, but man, I got to forecast kids, but I can't do any forecasting right now because my district is frozen all hiring and I've got 3 positions open and I don't know if they're going to cut and I don't know if they're going to add because we were supposed to get added to. So I can't know what to forecast until I get some movement from my district on that. So the idea is that we come through all this and we share out the things that we're thinking about and how we're proceeding and get different perspectives from different regions. So go ahead, Chris, move to the next one. So before we get started on this, I just want to make sure that and I'm in violation of number 1 already. I need to rename myself and let you know what district I'm from. I'm from Gresham Barlow School District. And I'm the principal at Dexter McCarty Middle School, in case you guys didn't know. We're gonna, just like everything else, if you can mute your microphone. And then if you utilize the chat, that would be great to communicate. And Miley's and Jamie, if you guys will kind of keep an eye on that, if there's questions that come up, that would be awesome. And then also, if you just go down to the reactions button on the bottom of your screen, and if you have a question, you just raise your hand or go ahead and just put your hand up. So go ahead, Chris, next one. When we call upon you, let's just go down the line. I'm going to go down the list of who I see present, and I'm going to ask you to introduce yourself, name, the school and the district that you work in. And really, one of the things that I've had the hardest time with is talking about what I'm really happy with or proud of that's going on with my staff right now or in our lives. One of the things is that Rachel and I don't see each other very often because she's upstairs and I'm downstairs and we're kind of trapped in our own little worlds doing those kind of things. But throughout all of this that's gone on, I'm most proud of the way that my teachers have shown professionalism and just diving in full force on this. I've got 3 people that are retiring this year, and I was so panicked that they were just going to check out and not do anything. But actually, surprisingly, 2 out of the 3 have just become leaders in this whole venue and where we're going. So I'm most proud about that. So Chris and Colin, you guys want to go next?
Hey, no, well, it's your meeting. You go, brother.
All right, I just did. Jamie, you go ahead and introduce then.
What are y'all doing here on such a nice day? I'm super surprised that so many of you are here. The weather is just broke here in little old Dallas, Oregon. Hopefully it has in your area as well. But one of the things that we're readily realizing is that we don't know what the hell we're doing. And especially during these times of never done before. So one of the things that we wanted to kind of cover is like just an idea share out. What are those transitions looking like across our area? Are there any great ideas that we can steal from one another? I was able to meet a little bit with our local Willamette ESD folks this morning with the same basic question. You know, what are we doing as middle schools to foster those transitions to high school? What are we doing for our incoming sixth grade? So I was hoping to just put those ideas out there. Maybe we can steal some ideas and move forward.
Great.
Not know how we do that because so many people are in here, but
Well, let's finish introducing everybody. Miley's.
My Elise Tolan, I'm with Lincoln County School District and OASSA, and I echo John. I'm just really, really proud of staff, certified, classified administrators. Everybody is just working together so hard to make this go. So super proud of everybody.
And Lynn, why don't you go ahead? We've got 57 people, 56 people in the room, and it'll probably take the whole hour. I appreciate the people that are putting in the chat their names and where they're from and stuff. And if you guys just want to add the thing you're most proud of, that would be awesome. But El Presidente, Lynn Jackson, I figured we'd let you introduce yourself too.
Mute myself, and really I have been so very grateful for my staff meeting families and students where they are. And that is a very wide spectrum of how our families are navigating this current situation. And so their flexibility in supporting students and supporting each other, I think I made mention of this a week or two ago, we are experiencing probably some of the best, I would say the best collaboration, true professional learning community work that we have experienced in my time as an administrator in the Astoria School District. Very impressed and grateful for those efforts of staff willing to collaborate a little bit out of necessity, but it's been great. Good. It's been good to see.
All right. Hey, Chris, can you go to the next slide? So one of the things I kind of mentioned a little bit ago is that for me personally, and I know for Rachel, my wife, these have been great opportunities over the past few weeks to just connect, support, collaborate, learn, and innovate, just to figure out, you know, where we're going and how do we do this? Because this is so new for us. And me personally, in my school and in one other school in our district, we were lucky enough to be recipients of the Verizon Innovation and Learning Grant, which means that we're going to go one-to-one in the fall, and it's a take-home one-to-one. So this is all a good precursor for us in learning how to work out all the kinks and the tech support and all that other stuff that goes on as we proceed. But the one thing that we really wanted to focus on, go ahead, Chris, next one, is that transition piece and end of year processes and knowing what they were and deciding what they're going to be and how we're going to pull it off. And then really thinking about when we go through the process and when we talk about these things, why we're doing it. What's the importance of it? Is it an importance for us as the adults, or is it an importance for the kids and the parents and the families? That's one of the things that I've been really focused on with my staff as we proceed, because this has been a huge transition from the brick and mortar setting and how we go about things versus we need to engage, we just need to show up and move down that avenue, plus the credits and all the other things that are going on. So we thought we would focus especially on the elementary to middle and the middle to high transition and the processes of forecasting. How are we going to teach sixth graders to do lockers before they show up on day one so that they know how to get into a locker? Oh boy, I'm going to have a locker partner, but I don't even know who that person is. And introducing faculty for them. What are you guys going to do about that? Because to be honest with you, my mind is just scrambling on how we go about this. So one more, I think, Chris, or are we at the end right now? There we go. So let's go ahead and just put everybody back on the screen, Chris. And then Jamie, you talked a little bit ago about your ESD meeting today, and it was kind of focused on this thing. So can you go ahead and share? You have to unmute, buddy. There you go.
How's that? How's that
Yeah.
now? Okay,
Nice.
good. It was just what you said, doing those things that we traditionally would do this time of year, because we're all kind of geared up for how are we going to welcome our incoming sixth grade at middle school? What are we going to do for our eighth graders? And I see a few of you out there, and I know you have seniors, graduating seniors this year, and it kind of breaks our hearts just watching them go through what they're going through. My son was looking forward to the last few months of his high school career as, you know, is this going to be the best time of my life? And now he's stuck in his room. So just trying to accommodate that, you know, and really the questions I'm getting mostly are about the parents and, you know, but I think there's that whole piece where our kids need a little bit of closure or a little bit of introduction to the next step. So one of the things that we talked about mostly this morning were just ideas. What are other people doing to wrap up our eighth graders into their freshman year to celebrate that? We never call it a graduation. We call it just a ceremony of we've lived through the last 3 years together and no one died. So that was probably pretty positive. But how do we keep those traditions going as much as possible? So my hope right now is just kind of, if anyone wants to jump in and say, hey, we have this really great idea, because I know like a lot of us were probably floundering with the things that are just spinning with what we have to get accomplished with all this newness, and how can we make this special for at least our eighth graders moving up to ninth grade?
Yeah, let's start with that, and then we can go to the transition from fifth to sixth, and then we can cover those things. But if anybody has anything they want to jump in on in terms of what are you going to do for that eighth to ninth grade transition, please share. So Maya Elise, what's Lincoln County going to do?
So our principals at the high school and then at the middle school all have 3 different virtual meetings planned between now and the end of the school year that covers forecasting. They've made videos over electives so that they can start showing those. Am I the right one? 7, 8, going up to high school. So they're really, one school's doing a virtual like a gallery walk, kind of going through the building and filming going through the building so that kids that have never been up there can actually see kind of the lay of the land and what that would look like and where different classrooms are. So I loved the point, John, that you brought up about considering what is the purpose of that event, and how do we make sure that we're meeting the needs of the purpose of the event, whether it's because the parents need to have that comfort or the students need to see it. So yeah, I think that's kind of the main thing right now, is trying to make as much of it virtual. Aaron, I'm going to call on you and have you kind of talk about the proposal you have for promotion and how you're trying to pull that off just to still have some sort of an event for kids. And then also your breakfast that you did, I think today I saw.
Hi, I'm Aaron Bologna. I'm the principal at Newport Middle in Lincoln County School District. Well, I'm proposing, you know, for our eighth graders is doing the whatever, it's a motorcade or a parade, you know, in their cars. We're right next to the high school. And what we've typically done is we do a moving up event is what we call it. And we take the kids down just the day before graduation, and we sit them in the graduation chairs at the high school. And that's their handoff to the high school. So I talk to them, a couple of the high school kids talk with them, and then the principal welcomes them. And we kind of tell them, hey, this is where you're going to be in 4 years, and that's what the goal is. And so our parade idea would be, because our schools are close together, they would come through the middle school and get to see their teachers who are spaced out, and we'd have signs and congratulations, and then head down the hill and go to the high school where they'd be welcomed by the high school principal and the staff down there. Something we're thinking about. I think kind of have all green lights except for the equity issue is what we're concerned about. You know, is everybody going to be able to have a car and be able to participate? I think that's kind of the big hurdle at the moment for us. And my Elise, I think you were talking about the breakfast, like our breakfast of champions. Is that the one you're asking about?
Yeah.
So that's, I don't know if that's recognizing eighth grade, recognizes all 6th, 7th, and 8th graders. It's our student of the month activity that we do. We have a breakfast. It's every 6 weeks actually that we do it, but we did it virtually this time. So typically we have the families in and we do a big breakfast for everybody and talk about our students of the month. And we just did it virtually and it was really fun. The families got on Zoom and we were on Zoom with the kids, and teachers talk about each kid and how special they are and what they bring to our school. And that was a really fun thing to kind of keep some tradition alive for us.
That's great. That's awesome. You know, I'm really curious about high school principals that are present and what they're feeling or thinking right now about that 8th to 9th grade transition, especially those high schools that are huge. And I see Miss Amy Fast on the chat with us. So Amy, have you guys talked about that transition yet?
Yeah, can you hear me okay? Sometimes my audio doesn't work
No.
on these
Good.
large Zooms.
All good.
Okay, all right. Well, so at the high school, I'm at Mimbo High School, you know, we typically, and Chris knows this as former principal, we typically do a big 8th grade fair that happens during the school day, and both middle schools come, and there's a rotation of students that kind of get a tour of the school. They learn about our programs, and they also attend the fair part, which is all the clubs, different career pathways, sports, have senior or upperclassmen students who are running little booths, and they can, you know, experiment with the robotics club and play around with their toys, and they can do a little putt-putt golf with the golf club, and that's where they sign up for clubs and kind of learn about the various programs that we have to offer. So this year we're going to do that virtually. So we're going to pre-record a tour of the school. We're going to have all the club and pathway leaders submit videos and of their students talking about what they do, and possibly videos of past performances or pictures and whatnot of what they've done. And then we still have not completed our forecasting for the year. We're super late on it this year. So we're actually going to have the 8th grade remote classes shut down for 2 days. And the only task for families will be that forecasting for the high school. So the students and their families will be working on that together to turn in the classes that they're hoping to take next year.
That's a good idea. What's that going to look like?
Well, it's going to be a pre-recorded screencast or video from counselors. As I said, prior to that, embedded will be different videos about the different career pathways and different academic options for our students. So they kind of have had, through their advisory classes in 8th grade, this lead up all year long to the different options that we have. So they know how to read a transcript, they know how to calculate a GPA, they've looked for a course bulletin. But really, this is like decision-making time. So it'll be us as high school people going into their remote learning hub and basically taking over the 8th grade classes. So all 8th grade Google Classrooms will push out our forecasting screencasts, as well as the online portal that allows students to actually make those choices and submit them for their classes for the following year. So as far as lockers and getting to know teachers and that sort of thing, we do have a freshman only day. I'm not sure how that'll be different in the fall if remote learning persists, but it's likely that we'll have some sort of freshman only day / days, which actually happen, like I said, before everyone else returns to school. It's usually the day before. So I'm not sure what that part will look like, but we do agree that it's important that freshmen have a time to be in there all by themselves and kind of get to know the layout of the land and get their lockers and that sort of thing.
Cool. Thank you for that. You know, one of the things that I've been thinking about is that we have a freshman academy that we run in the summer through Major $98, and we identify those students and we invite them to participate, those ones that we think will need it the most. And we haven't talked about it yet, but I'm wondering virtually how we'd be able to pull that off, to be able to get those students to come in. So that's just a question in my head. If anybody has anything, you can throw it in the chat or chime in. But ladies and gentlemen, I want to introduce Lee Loving, the principal of Ridgeview High School, and ask Lee for his input. If he can figure out how to unmute himself. Lee. Okay, so that didn't work. My enthusiasm was undone a little bit. So let's try Lynn Jackson. Lynn, sorry.
No, I'll take, I mean, I know I'm not the replacement of the principal of the year, Lee Loving, but I'll do my best to share out a couple of ideas. I really echo what you said, John, about we have a Astoria Middle School, an AMS AHS bridge program that we've been conducting, and we have some students that we strongly invite to that program, as well as open it up for an opt-in type of participation. And even with some of the points that have been presented today through the governor's office, I'm optimistic that I'm going to be able to pull that off. I run that typically from the 4th week of July, meeting 4 to 5 days a week for about 6 hours a day. That allows some students to get some basic transition skills done, as well as one of their electives done. Many of these students have limited elective choices their first semester as a freshman, and so we're excited to broaden those opportunities by getting some of their credits done during a summer school model. So we're optimistic that we're going to have 21, 22 of those students participate this upcoming late July and August. I'm hopeful that the social distancing measures will allow that to happen and then allow them to get that jump start. That's one of the key things that we're working on. I am very nervous, has already been conveyed, about if we're still doing social distancing and remote learning come this upcoming September. My concern is we've been able to make do in April and May of 2020 because of strong relationships. I can't imagine trying to kick off remote learning with teachers who don't even know with students who don't even know what their teachers look like and have never spoken to them or really communicated or interacted with them. I see that being a significant challenge for the class of 2024 if we're still in this type of model.
Right. You know, one of the things that we've thought about is presenting a virtual meet and greet with each of our teachers on our 6th grade team for sure. And then, but man, when you talk about going to Gresham High School, when there's, 1,800 kids and 100 and some teachers, that's a difficulty for sure. Sarah put into the chat from OASSA some things about what Gresham is actually going to do. Sarah, can you share a little bit about that with us?
Yeah, hi, Sarah with OASSA, Student Council and work for COSA. So I've been on a lot of chats with activities advisors, and the great thing is they are working so hard to have your back and support you and your leaders in all of these transitions. So definitely don't forget about your student leaders, whether they're even elected or not, that any of your students are there to help and support you. They're looking for ways to help, whether that be making some of these videos for the clubs that Amy talked about, or Ty Gonrowski with Gresham High School making the Google form in order to send it out to the incoming freshmen in order to get their feedback, so then he can prepare lists and send them to each of those club advisors and reach out. So again, trying to make those connections, because we know when students are connected, the chance of success is so much greater. So really trying to get them connected to what are your interests, and those lists are great for the beginning of that transition, but also throughout the year as you can refer back to them. So he made just a basic PowerPoint in order to go with the Google form that he created, just to explain each of the clubs. Other schools that I've talked to, again, are making videos. They're doing walking tours of the school on video. South Middle School, I know their principal's on here. They just did, it was the first middle school virtual assembly that I had seen, which was so awesome. It was really insightful. But what the student leaders can come up with, whether they're middle school or high school, in order to help with, and their video skills are way greater than mine and probably most of us. And so they're looking for ways to help create those. So I think I posted what Ty shared, but also just keep reaching out to your students if you have an idea on. John, you mentioned earlier about the locker, you know, and how to open your locker. Quick, easy. So that's an easy Instagram video or an Instagram live. So all of our students are on, you know, the social media platforms so much right now that utilize those platforms to get those quick little videos out, 1 minute or less. Just make a list of all the things you want to come up with. I'm also going to throw in a one-page document that Gresham High School also ties on our board, so that's why he's helping us a lot. Made that's tips for making a virtual assembly, just tips that they've learned by doing it 3 or 4 times now. And then South Middle School will probably be able to jump in and add some tips on their assembly. But again, utilizing those videos.
Cool. Thanks for that. I appreciate that. Hey, Jared Tesh from Sunridge and Pendleton, you forecasted using Google Forms. How did that go?
Well, admittedly, we kind of started doing that a couple of years ago. So it was easy once we were in distance learning just to push that form out to all my students. And we obviously still had, probably about 15% that didn't respond, that our counselors have had to make personal contact with and phone calls with. At the middle school, we were only really forecasting for electives, and the rest are handled by teacher recommendations. And our high school transitions, we fortunately had forecast for high school literally 2 weeks before, so we didn't have to tackle that. And they, again, made the rest with just personal phone calls to kids. The new electives, because that was a challenge. Normally our counselors would go into classrooms and stuff to let particularly our 6th graders who might be more new to this and stuff, and our 5th grades. For those, for anything that was new, and for our 6th graders, we made kind of a little mini curriculum book with some pictures, and we just tasked those teachers with making those little tiny blurbs, and they made little tiny videos as well that went with, and particularly anything that was new or wouldn't be obvious. We didn't ask our band teachers to do that because that's pretty obvious, but anything that was new, like a fish and wildlife or a healthy living or things that you wouldn't just know. So they pushed those out actually 2 days before we pushed out the forms. The week before, we had let kids know, hey, we're going to be forecasting. Then we pushed out the videos and the little curriculum guide things, and then we pushed out the actual forecast form. The forecast forms were easy because, again, kids were used to that process already. So we got really quick response.
That's awesome. Hey, would you be willing to kind of like share maybe a couple of video clips and how they were presented and maybe the form with us or the templates so that
I would push them to somebody. I don't have them. My counseling office actually takes care of everything. So, okay. But I could push them to you or to somebody. And
if you could push them to Chris, and then Chris could dispense them or disperse them to us, that would be awesome. That would be great. Thank you for that. I appreciate it. So, hey, Jamie. So you're the digital principal of the nation, of the world, of the year, right? So
I don't know why you do that, but
and you're the video guy. That's because I'm not sitting right next to you and you can't punch me. But anyways, and you're the tech guy. So how are you introducing your faculty to your 5th graders? Have you thought about it? Have you got a plan?
Well, we have a plan. One of the cool things that I really appreciate most about our teachers is we really look at project-based learning as a mode to get our kids engaged, but also to help them struggle and learn through the whole process. But I have a really strong leadership class, and in fact, I'm meeting with those kids tomorrow. They had already planned for a transition tour, but also just to incorporate some of the finer little details and questions that kids might have coming up from 5th grade that they typically do. So we run a couple of days of tours for 5th graders who come up. And I just kind of launched it out to them, and they said, you know, we think we can still do this. So still taking those things that we usually would do, but then have to look at them slightly different. So I think one of you already mentioned that we have kids who have skills way beyond ours. And so they're they're really motivated to see how they can produce something that's going to introduce our fifth graders to Lac Real the best possible way. And I assume that I'll be bossed around by 4 eighth graders in the coming weeks. They'll tell me what to do, where to go, what to film, and how to stand probably. And that's kind of the beauty of the whole thing, is that kids are taking some ownership, and I have the ability with this group of kids that said, you know, we are already planning this, let us run with it. So really it's hard for me to function on how do I introduce my kids to my staff. I really am having to reverse it and saying, how can I introduce my kids to the school? And then the rest will come. We typically do a 6th grade orientation camp over the summer that we have some ideas for, but it'll basically be, who knows what's coming down the road. I mean, can we open it up to in person? Can we open it up to some other virtual way of doing things? But no, I think it's just being creative and using our kids and our resources the best we can, because they're the best, man.
Awesome. Hey, thanks for that. Hey, I do see that we have Mayra Gomez on the line. Mayra, do you have anything you want to share from what you're doing in your district?
I'm actually trying to copy everything that Ty from Gresham High School is doing. He has some great ideas. So I am listening to what everyone's doing, so that then I can pass those awesome ideas down to the people that I work with.
Great. So Chris, I think it was Chris, you had a thought. At the middle school level, could teachers loop up with their kids for the first 9 weeks to help the transition while we continue distance learning? Can you kind of give us a insight into what you're saying, what you're thinking?
You bet. I was just kind of building off of what Lynn said about the notion of if for some reason we came back to school in the fall with some level of social distancing, or not social distancing, but just distance learning. You know, there's lots of talk out there about, well, maybe only half the kids come back at a time, and like A days and B days. And I mean, there's a lot of variations that could occur, at least at the middle level. And I would think in some cases, even at the high school level, based on content area, you might even be able to start the year with the same people who ended the year with kids. You know, if somebody who taught sophomore English could very easily probably teach junior English for the first semester, it might be a little bit of a learning curve for them in terms of content. But if we're really focused on the kids, I think we're focused on their transition and not the teacher's transition, right? So just an idea, but you know, it can't work in all areas, but it might work in some of the core content areas, at least to give some kids some level of stability as they return, some familiarity and comfort before you handed them off to the next adult in the system.
Interesting. Anybody have thoughts on that? Want to share, add? Miley's?
Yeah, sorry, I do.
I could tell by the look on your face.
I know. I read that differently when you put that in the chat, and I like it, but regardless of how it really played out, one thing I do think, if we do open distance or not, if we're on an A-B half schedule kind of thing with kids, maybe just that thought that it used to be, you know, the 5th grade teacher went up and they met the 6th grade teacher, and the kids saw them like laugh together, and they saw that this was a safe person to hand to. And so even if it's a virtual environment, if 8th grade teachers for the first week, and it would be a slow start, just like the supplemental learning, blah, blah, blah. But if 8th grade teachers were in those chats with the 9th grade Google Meets, and they were, ELA teachers were kind of working together to slowly release, I mean, what do we have to lose in doing something like that? It's a mess right now anyway. So at least we would keep that priority of safety and relationships and consistency. And, you know, and I bet when we look at how some people are retiring and leaving, I don't know a teacher right now whose heart is not in it for the kids. They might be mad about all the other stuff that we're having to do with it, but the kids are their focus. And so I think we could be pretty creative around that idea of transition's going to have to look different now, and relationships have to be the priority. That's why we did the fly up in the first place, was so they felt safe 3 months later. So maybe we just have to switch it. I think Cascade put in there holding off till August anyway, to look at that. So yeah.
Good, thanks for that. Morgan, you had a question.
No, it's not a question, but just a thought on that. Already doing that now with our new hires. And so you think about transitions going from one safe person to another. So our new hires we have on contract, they're already in the Zooms. They're already in those discussions on project-based learnings happening now. So taking that a step further with the teachers that are currently with and looking to next year, can they start in even short little introductions working on, hey, I invited this teacher in to talk about this novel, or hey, I invited. So we're already starting those transitions now. So at least there's familiar names, faces, adults that know each other and can show that they trust and like each other. So we've already started that with new hires.
Cool, that's awesome. Hey, there's a couple things I want to go back to in the chat. Pete from Cascade Junior High, you talked about have an open house in person or virtually before school starts. What are your ideas in terms of virtual open house?
Well, we haven't quite got that far yet, but we are looking at having families log on Zoom or whatever it takes. But our goal was, if we have to break it up into sections, small groups that come in, we put them on shifts if we need to. Our staff will be there that week anyway, but theoretically they'll be there. But the goal really is to try to get kids to get familiar faces. I know that was talked about before. We did this, we always do this in May anyway, and kids love it, families love it, but it's just not an option right now. So we're excited about doing that. I think that's the plan. We're hoping to be able to do it in person because it's always better, but we'll do our best.
Cool, thanks for that. Hey, Barrett Sale and Grants Pass put in something about they're taking the last week to put together a PD plan for the following year in terms of standards that are missed, and that intrigues me a little bit in terms of that content piece and aspect in terms of rolling up from 6 to 7 or 7 to 8. Barrett, can you expand on that a little bit for us?
Yeah, we just came together with our district association earlier this week to plan out what was that last week, usually teacher checkout week and award ceremonies and stuff look like. And so our last day of content for teachers at both the middle school and high school level will be Friday, June 5th. And then for credit-bearing classes at middle school and high school will be makeup. So any students that have current incompletes, they can get work turned back in that last week. Majority of June 10th, that Wednesday, I think that's Wednesday. It's going to be teacher grading day, but most of that Monday, Tuesday will be work in grade level teams. In where did we end on March 13th with content covered, and then what was missed. Fortunate for math, I think in most districts, is that a lot of content for their grade level is covered by March 13th before spring break, and then most of April is looking back to prep for smarter balance testing. But a couple of units, I think, for our teachers that were missed, and so they're going to be giving that to the next grade level in what to start with. We know we're going to have to compact a little bit more at the beginning of the school year, regardless of what it looks like. So trying to be flexible with that.
Great, thanks for that. Brian, I'm going to come back to you for a second after a second, but I wanted to go and ask Morgan to kind of explain what he meant regarding incompletes and the transitions and how it was handled with those students receiving an F. What do you mean by that, bud?
Sure. As I understood the chat earlier, the question earlier, the question was, how do we handle incompletes in that transition from, let's say, 5th or 6th grade up to middle school? And so my thought was, well, what did you do when you had kids that were coming up with Fs anyway? Did you go back and re-evaluate the concepts and standards that were missed? Did they just move forward anyway? And trying to play that into, if somebody shows up with an incomplete in math from 6th to 7th grade, you automatically just move them on. But what were the standards anyway when it came to Fs? And I know that's different than incomplete, but it was just kind of a jumping off point.
I appreciate that. So one of the things that I have in my school is we have a intervention program, and especially it's mostly has been in the past focused on the sixth grade students that are coming to us from fifth grade and the holes or deficiencies they have in their learning in math, especially. But we're looking to amp that up into especially seventh grade for next year, because there are some things that just aren't going to get covered, and we're not going to be able to assess and see what's going on with that. So I'd be really interested in people sharing out, those ideas or thoughts regarding that piece in those middle grades that are staying in their school, but going from one core subject to another.
Hey, John, can I follow up on that with your
Sure.
comment? So do you think you would have the capacity then? In the past, you've had it narrowed, focusing on this one group of kids that came up addressing their concepts or standard deficiencies. But now we're looking at whole groups that may have incompletes and moving up. So I'd be interested to hear what other people have to say about the capacity to expand that kind of a program.
Yeah, and I can start that off if anybody else has anything they want to add to it. But our intervention program is really a bottom up, for lack of better terms. We have SPED and ELL classes that we incorporate. We mix ability levels in, and sometimes they're not just ELL students. They are other students, but at the same level in terms of their capacity for math or for reading. So it's kind of a step-by-step structure that we have for all of our interventions. I think they're going to be a little bit more crowded next year, perhaps, but we're still going to kind of continue that. We want to keep it feasible enough to where we're not cramming them full of 36 kids, because that's not going to work for those students and what they need. But the real interesting piece is my intervention teacher at this point in time. I have just one. I have one teacher that is strictly intervention, math and reading, but she spans either ELL and SPED also. I have one ELL teacher that has one intervention period outside of her regular ELL classes, and then I have two SPED teachers that teach skills classes. So we're talking about right now how to go about the structure for that, and the initial thing that they've thrown out is that we got to focus on math. So that's just kind of the ideas we're tossing at this point in time. But until I can get a master schedule built and figure out how many teachers I'm going to have, it's kind of on hold. So,
hey, John, let me ask you a question a little more specific. Let's say in a case where you have an 8th grader taking a Algebra 1 class for high school credit at the middle level. Typically every district does something like that for their advanced math kids. And a student would get an incomplete, for instance, in that Algebra 1 class for second semester. They obviously, by virtue of the ODE's guidance, they only have next school year to remediate that, right? Is the idea then it will be the high school staff's responsibility to go back and remediate that incomplete to a passing grade? Or will it be the 8th grade teacher's responsibility to help remediate that when the kid's sitting as a freshman?
So what we've decided to do with our integrated 1 classes, which are for high school credit, is we've decided that they're going to be a little bit more strict in terms of their grading, and they're going to only provide a pass to a student that would have received an A or a B based upon not only their effort, but also the product that they produce. Because that's what we've done in the past. If we have integrated 1 students, if they received less than a B, then they were forecasted for integrated 1 again the following year. So we're continuing that process. In terms of any kind of remediation or anything that's going to occur, especially for that level of student, they're just going to go right back into that integrated 1 section as their freshman year. Did that answer? Okay, looks that way. So Brian.
John?
Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, can you balance that high rigor standard with the guidance that came out about what constitutes a passing grade, which for a lot of things are 60%, and a lot of us have never thought that a 60% was passed. So are you still holding that you have to have an 80% compared to that guidance to get a passing?
No, so what we're doing, and that's a good question, what we're doing is we're following pretty much the way that they have the standard set, that ODE set out the standard for for seniors in terms of their credits as their senior year. So if they received A or B in the first 2 trimesters and they produced the quantity of work and the quality of work as reviewed and viewed by the teacher, then we will reward them with that A or B for the end of this year for 8th graders.
On that note, John, something that I would like to explore, it's a little bit of a tangent, but the credit earning assurance plans that we are supposed to have implemented for all students grades 9 through 11. One thing I'm intrigued about is the mobility of our population. So we talked about whose responsibility is it from 8th grade into that freshman year. On the North Coast, and I'm sure this is very similar throughout the state, my mobility rate can sometimes be 20-25% on any given year. That's going to be an intriguing challenge for us, as I may have 60 students coming in or 60 students going out this next fall. And I'm interested, Chris, if we've received any guidance of who's responsible for that, the home district or the district to where the student is moving to, and how do you keep those things tied together?
I have not heard anything on the specifics on that, Lynn, but it is something that I think all of us at the secondary level need to really be thoughtful about, because when it comes to the high school level and there's credit assigned, it's really clear that the remediation of that incomplete to a credit is really important. And that's not quite the same as it is at the middle level, because there's not credit associated with the middle school class. It's just content to be ready for credit once they get there. But now that they put the parameters that we only have this school year or next school year to remediate that incomplete into a passing grade, I'm assuming at the end of the 21 school year, if it hasn't been done, it automatically becomes an F on the transcript.
Right. And our populations that are very mobile are those same populations that are most at risk.
Yeah.
And so I would really like to see some more guidance on how that is expected to be implemented and carried out. I know they have talked about, in a sense, using the medical term, first do no harm, but it would be nice to see some more guidance on what that would look like in practice.
Yeah, I would suspect, just on surface as I think about it sitting here, that Astoria High School would be responsible for the students who were at Astoria High School, even if they were there having moved from Seaside, because you're the one who's receiving the basic school support for that student. You're responsible for their education, right? I mean, that makes sense, but I don't know how you go back to Seaside and say, well, what 2 units didn't the student demonstrate proficiency in that they could somehow demonstrate at Astoria for them to be awarded credit?
But even more complex with that, Chris, is what if I have a student from Seaside and they have an amazing culinary program at Seaside High School? I do not. I have marine biology programs, fisheries programs. We have a functioning hatchery on our campus. They do not. So if I have a student who gets an incomplete in fish tech and goes down to Seaside, how do they recoup that credit? Those are some pretty complicating factors when we may not even have the same courses being offered.
Can I interject real quick? I just wanted to maintain the focus on the transitions in those things from middle, high, and elementary to, that sounds like a great topic for next week in terms of that kind of stuff going on. I don't mean to cut you off or anything, but there are a couple of things that I did want to get to. Morgan, you asked the question, are we able to issue that A or B? Do we still have to do a pass or a no grade? It's in our case, and what we're doing, it's still a pass, even if it's a C or D, but we also refer those 8th graders in terms of, yes, they should go, they should go, they should go. This one, no, no, no. Do you understand what I'm saying? So we're still putting it down as a pass, but we're not putting it down as a grade. I did want to get back to, and I see we've got about 10 minutes left at the most here. Brian has put in a couple questions for me. And Brian, I want to go back to that. The question that you had, was it about the what people are doing about yearbooks and things like that? Do you want to expand?
Are you talking to me, Brian?
Yes, I am.
Okay. There was just a word yearbook. Okay. So I'm trying to think. So one thing we've been talking about, so I'm at Whitford Middle School in Beaverton, and Dave Furman's on here as well. He's the assistant principal at Beaverton High School. So we feed into 3 high schools, and all the high schools at Beaverton are starting to talk a little bit about, do we ask our district to have 8th grade and 5th grade start at their previous school, whenever that is, and do some sort of goodbye or tradition or and then hop on a bus and head to their new spot. Beaverton offered to say, hey, maybe all the high schools can be there and give them a t-shirt to say, something about this crazy year. But that's one way. The other thing I said in there was, our 8th grade teachers are on teams, so they often have just class meetings, and the assistant principals and some of the teachers from Beaverton High School have offered to kind of join that meeting and just introduce themselves. I know the principals come over to our PTO meetings every spring, but I think the sooner we can get new faces in front of the kids while they're still engaged in school, I think the better. Who knows what's going to happen in the summer, but I think for now, our numbers are better than I think they will be maybe in the middle of summer. And we use Canvas, so that's a great way that we've been contacting kids through that technology.
Great. Thanks for that. So I'm looking in the chat room. Jamie, do you want to add anything at this point in time, or Maya-Lise? Oh, sure. Leave me hanging, shake your head. No, I really appreciate that kind of stuff.
You're done good, Big John. But number one, I'm glad you're feeling well, buddy. You're looking good. So glad to hear that.
Thanks for that. Just don't see me in the morning. It's brutal. But anyway, enough about me. Let's talk more
I
about
do have something though. In the chat box, I appreciate seeing so many middle level administrators that are on this call, or small schools that are dealing with the whole 7-12 and what that's like. So if you have middle level specific topics that you would like to see added to our Zoom sequence, it would be great if you put those in the chat so we can compile really specific middle level issues that we can look at for future meetings.
And we can always break out in future meetings and just have after brief introductions, have a portion be focused just for a group on middle level and high school people separate, and then come back together. So that's always an option too, if there's topics that you want to go a little deeper on.
Well, I didn't want to shut you and Lynn down, but I don't award credits or have culinary programs or things like that. So I'm lucky.
John, as an example, you're the one that makes the decision regarding the student getting credit or not. So because the student's taking your class, you're going to give them a grade, but you're also going to be recommending that credit be added to their transcript when they come to the high school. High school doesn't make that decision.
Correct. No, and I understand that. Nope, I got it. Does anybody else have anything? I'm running out here. Somebody bail me out. Barb Keaton from Deep Creek, Damascus. How about you?
The only thing that I can think of that has not been mentioned here is I do have somebody making a video that I can share with, because I am a K-8. I keep all of my elementary kids, and typically I don't have any incoming middle, but this year we did our boundary redrawing process. So I do have some kids coming from other elementary schools this year. So we are creating a video. I even have a guy, one of my custodians at the drone, who's going to get some outside photos. So we have at least that kind of a virtual introduction to the building. As far as forecasting, I have Google Forms I'm going to send home. And I have not done that in the past, but I have done plenty of Google Forms with the kids. And because I'm just really forecasting electives, it's a pretty simple, clean process. And our high school forecasting was all done before the break. So my counselor had to do some collecting of some forms that weren't quite turned in after the distance learning started, but at least the big part of that was done too.
That's
John,
for you.
Yeah.
John, following up with what Barb said, is I'm doing something similar in the sense of I did my first screencast a couple of days ago over the map of Astoria High School, and I'm doing a rough cut video tour of the campus with me just walking through and making a video that way. And it's a rough cut. It's not going to be polished. It's going to be me pretty raw, just talking about what the school entails and showing right now. We're going to be in construction next year as well. So that's going to give them the opportunity not only to see the building, but to hear me in an unpolished way, presenting what this school's about and the excitement that I have for them to come. So that's something that I'm learning and developing. I'm not Jamie Richardson yet, but I'm working on it.
Yeah, that's one of the challenges that I face this summer is that my building is totally shut down. So any device distribution, any locker cleanup, kids, I still haven't been able to do locker cleanout yet because of asbestos abatement and all that kind of stuff. So it's been an interesting time. So I do have to ask, so I can't leave this man out. And I know the guru is sitting over there across the table from Chris, and I just want to know if Colin had anything to share or any words of wisdom.
Well, thanks, John. Earlier this week, I sat in on the elementary folks, and they were talking about transitions from kindergarten and also the 5th to 6th grade transition. And they had a great discussion. We have a lot of very caring people. And one of the things that came up was for all our students, regardless if we're transitioning, between schools, like you guys are talking about, we also have kids there that are in all the grades that have a sense of loss and that they didn't finish the year. And they're kind of worried about next year's teacher. So there's some anxiety by everybody, and certainly the ones that, the transition years, but all your grade level kids, all the kids are a little bit anxious, do I know enough to be an 8th grader? I didn't even get to finish my 7th grade year. Am I smart enough to do that math now? We're just going to have some real good reassurance as the new kids come in, and they have to feel like, yeah, it's going to work out. So that's all I would say, John.
All right. Hey, thanks for that. Hey, Barrett and Aaron, I like those ideas. If we had more time, I would be diving into Aaron a little bit more and asking about how it is working for my lease, but I won't go there right now at this point in time. Maybe do that on the side or something like that. Does anybody have anything they want to add? I like those 2 suggestions that you guys brought up for next week. Morgan, go ahead.
Yeah, John, I think that if I and others are interpreting guidance correctly on the 25-person limit, that does not apply to drive-in style commitment. So if you have a large parking lot and you can get people in sitting in their own cars, socially distanced, you can fit a lot of people in. Granted, I'm from a small district and a small school, but we're going to do all our transitions from a drive-in style method. And then afterwards, those that have never been in our building or want to see all the transformations we've made are going to funnel through socially distanced in a one-way pathway through, in and out. And so that drive-in method seems to be, I don't want to say call it out, but a way to get more people for a common message all at one time.
Right. And no, that's a good point. We've done that in our district with medication pickups, and we've done it in our district with device pickups. And, my drop-off pickup is just one big long parking lot. So we just line them up and go through and then space them out that way. So anyway, Chris, do you have anything you want to add for the good of the order before we shut down?
I'll just leave the chat open for about the next 5 minutes. So if you have topics for discussion for next Thursday you want to go deeper on, or other things that we haven't addressed yet, go ahead and put them in the chat, and then we'll review it and come up with an agenda for next week. But hey, I just again want to thank the members of OMLA. It's great to see your participation here today. And of course, anything we can do to help support middle level administrators and teachers, we surely want to do. So thanks for joining.
In closing, I like the idea of the breakouts on the Thursdays and having a middle topic and a high topic. That would be good for us. I nominate Barb or Jamie to lead the next one. Just so you know, I hope I didn't offend anybody. And I appreciate all of the information that I heard today. That was great. It gives me some great ideas, and I look forward to sharing with the rest of, or with all of you down the road. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
Thank
Thanks
you.
all.
Thanks, everybody.
Miley and Jamie, you want to hang out for a second? Oh, Jamie already bailed.
Oh, he's there.
Oh, is he still there? Okay.
John, this is Brian from Whitford. If you want some ideas on locker cleanout, we just did it last Friday.
Do you guys have locker partners?
Yeah, it's a lot of work.
Cool. Hey, shoot me an email and I'll call you, all right?
Well, all right.
All right. Thanks, man.
No, I think that could be just those sharing of strategies for next meeting might be really kind of cool because we're all kind of experiencing those same kind of landmark events. So, Jared Tesh, it's good to see you, brother.
You're still on mute, Jared.
Hey, Sarah Nellis, you get the award for the most things linked up in the Zoom chat folder.
That's my job. Resources.
Nice. Good job. I like your patio too.
I'm wondering if based on the comments on the social emotional health for middle school, even the advisory is around a lot of that relationship. And when we're touching on those, I know these are free, so we're not charging people to attend them, but maybe if we did one of these Thursdays that is a guest speaker or something, that whether it's if Dr. Robin would do something, or I don't know. I'm just kind of thinking we have a lot of partners that might be willing to do even a quick little blurb and take us through their free resources. I don't know.
I think Character Strong would be Houston and John would be my number one in this SEL realm. They're K-12 and they're like literally leading the nation right now. And yeah, I talk to both of them almost daily, so or at least every other day. So I think bringing them in for a little snippet's a great idea.
Sarah, will you see what their schedule looks like on a Thursday, 4 to 5, and we could get them in even as early as next Thursday? But if it has to be something scheduled a little bit later, what their schedule looks like for that?
Yep, I can reach out.
Okay.
Cool. Feedback? I think it went well.
Good.
Well done, John.
I was really glad to see the middle level. And Miley, thanks for the reminder about reaching out to middle level, because all it took was one email to Beth in Portland, and she sent it out to all middle level heads, so it worked out great.
Thanks for reining Chris and I back in, John. Good man.
My marine biology fishery class. Come on, Lynn.
Hey, I'm worried about this. I got serious anxiety about what I'm going to do with those 150 credit assurance plans I'm going to have or something like that.
Well, I want to come up and be a part of your elective program, okay? That's pretty cool. Nice job.
All right, thanks everybody.
Thanks, guys.
You bet.
All right.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Miley's.
She froze.
She froze. Johnny, Johnny, you still there? I think it went good. It just reiterated the fact that how all over the map everyone is in their thinking and how much they've read into the state, guidelines and everything. So I think the middle school and just being able to have a smaller group to kind of speak up a little bit. I think a lot of people knew the answers, were sitting in the background, and it's kind of intimidating to step up in a big group. So I like the idea of breakouts.
Yeah, I do too. I think that'd be good. Chris, Colin, your guys' thoughts?
Yeah, I think we could do that. We'll just have to take a little bit of time on the front end, and people are going to have to go in and they're going to have to put like an M or an H in front of their name so that we can then take and sort that information into middle and high.
Actually, what you do, Chris, is we just set up a breakout room in Zoom. So then either the middle or the high school people would transfer into that breakout room.
I know, but I think we have to control that on our end. That's what Megan has told us, is that we on this side have to put them in the breakout rooms.
Or they end up random.
We can set it up randomly and people can randomly go into rooms. But if you want people to specifically go to a middle room or a high room, you can't choose it. We have to put you there.
So what you do is we have just the one Zoom for everybody. And then the high school would stay on that one Zoom. And then the middle school would leave the meeting. And then there'd be a second link to the middle school room. And then they'd enter that middle school.
Okay, well, I'll do a little work with Megan this week to see how we can get that set up. And then next week we could try it at least for a period of time. If we had a presenter and then we said, okay, now we're going to break out and talk high school, middle school, and let people divide up, then come back at the end, that'd be good.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, thanks.
Anything else?
Thanks, you guys.
All right.
Have
Thanks,
a good
Dean.
weekend.
Thanks,
Have a good
Lynn.
Mother's Day.
Good to
Yeah.
see you guys.